What's going on, everybody? Doug here, one of the hosts, producers, and creators of the Genre of Your Life podcast, here with a review roundup episode for you all this week. No full episode of the Genre of Your Life podcast this week, unfortunately. I'll be traveling to Denver, but have no fear, the boys and I, or myself and Nick, will be back next week with the full episode of the podcast for you all. Next week, we have the highly anticipated Mad Max prequel with Furiosa hitting theaters, as well. And this weekend, we have Ryan Reynolds and John Krasinski's new movie, If, hitting theaters as well. So next week, we'll probably have a full episode for you all, the podcast. A lot of reviews, a lot of news to catch up on, so have no fear. We'll be back next week with a full episode of the show. But in the meantime, I have this week's review roundup episode for you all. On this week's episode, I'll be reviewing the highly anticipated Amy Winehouse biopic, Back to Black. And I'm very eager to review this movie for you all. A lot to talk about. I'll also be covering my top five favorite music biopics of all time. So we have a pretty damn cool review roundup episode for you all this week to hold you over until myself and Nick are back, or the boys will be back with a full episode of the podcast. But as always, guys, you can find the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon Music. We also have a full audio show on our YouTube page, youtube.com/Midway Avenue Productions. Whether you're on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Amazon, please rate, subscribe, follow the show. We need your support, as always. Seriously, this past couple months of the new year so far have been great. But to our Apple Podcast fans, please review, rate the show. The more rings we get, more traction we get for more coverage on screenings and more coverage for interviews and guest stuff like that. So we really do appreciate the support and help. It means a lot to us. So yeah, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube Music, YouTube itself. Our YouTube has been growing a lot, which is great. A lot of our at the reactions, whether it was The Fall Guy, Planet of the Apes, or Idea of You, or Monkey Man. Like, we love doing those. Like, it's always fun, kind of like giving our quick thoughts of the movie, whether it's on YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. But our YouTube has definitely been growing a lot, which has been great. For some reason, our Expendables 4 reaction is one of our biggest hits ever, with almost 60,000 views, which is crazy for a movie that me and Nick did not really care for. I mean, we had a good time with how bad it was, but hey, you know what? You all are loving it, and we love that you love it. So thank you all for, again, supporting the channel, supporting the YouTube page, supporting the podcast. Again, we're just beginning. We have a great summer ahead of you guys. Like I said, we have If, Furiosa, Bad Boys, Ride or Die, Deadpool, Wolverine, Twisters. Oh my gosh, Borderlands. We have a great summer of podcasts for you all. A lot of reviews, a lot of news, like what will happen with Spider-Man 4 directing, who's casting the next Marvel movie, or whatever, next M. Night Shyamalan movie, what's going on, Jordan Peele's next movie. We really have a lot in store for you all this summer. But again, we do need your support in terms of ratings and reviews. So again, Spotify, Apple Podcasts especially, review, rate the show. It means the world to us. And as always, guys, thank you so much for your ongoing support. We all do truly appreciate it. Alrighty, my friends. So, like I said, top of the episode, on this week's review roundup episode, I have my review of the Amy Winehouse biopic, Back to Black. Full context right off the bat, I'll say this. I would not call myself an Amy Winehouse fan, just because I'm not too familiar with her work, I would say. Like, I know Rehab, I know the song Back to Black, but like, I wouldn't call myself a fan. Like, I said the same thing with the Bob Marley biopic too. Like, I'm not the biggest Bob Marley fan, just because like I know some of his songs, but like I'm not like a diehard, like really like, oh my gosh, like I love these artists. Because again, that wouldn't be true. I feel like the last really big music biopic that I was like hyped for was probably Straight Outta Compton, because I was a big NWA fan, big Ice Cube fan growing up, big Dr. Dre fan growing up too. So like that to me was like, oh, this is what I'm looking for. Hell yeah. Kind of like Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man. Like, I was eager to see them from like a film, just film fan, movie buff perspective. But I really haven't seen a music biopic that I've loved in quite some time, or even like an Elvis too. Like Elvis, I was looking forward to seeing because of like who was involved, but I really haven't seen like a music biopic that like I raved about since probably Straight Outta Compton, which was now 10 years ago in 2015. So it's been a while. But again, not too familiar with Amy Winehouse. I know she left us too soon, unfortunately. I know she had a great body of work, and she had huge impact now, 13 years later, when she passed away in 2011. Like, her music definitely has still has a huge fan base to this very day. I know A24 made a really apparently a really well received documentary back in, I want to say 2015. I could be wrong. Yeah, 2015. And this kind of 2024 was still kind of just like becoming kind of like, you know, what they were as like an independent kind of like brand of a studio. Now they're this huge, you know, conglomerate of a, you know, film company. I heard that's great. I have not watched that yet. I'll probably watch it on the plane ride to Denver this weekend. So I'm definitely want to see that after seeing this movie for sure. You know, like most biopics too. Like I know it's very Hollywoodified or kind of just like glamorized. That like it's not as like accurate if you look up like the actual facts with your own research. I do that with every biopic I've seen, music or not. I want to know like what was the real story like before, like, kind of like the context of like how this person became who they are, the aftermath, or kind of just like their inspiration, stuff like that. So I do that with all biopics, music or not, sports, whatever. I feel it's very important for me to know the kind of the true context, not just what I'm seeing on screen. Because again, Hollywood likes to, you know, dramatize, kind of just like emphasize different parts of people's lives or things, kind of like tweak the little bit of story. Like, again, I love the movie Argo. Love the movie Argo. But I know after seeing the movie, people were like, no, it was not historically accurate, blah, 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 stuff like that. So again, I do like to have my own kind of perspective as watching the movie, but also kind of do my own homework and research after seeing the movie itself, which I did with Back to Black. So Back to Black, and obviously, as we said, it is the Amy Winehouse biopic directed by Sam Taylor Johnson, who did the first 50 Shades of Grey. And I believe she also did a movie called Nowhere Boy, and she's married to the very talented Aaron Taylor Johnson. You probably know from Kick-Ass and Bullet Train. He was recently the Fall Guy, like very, very talented power couple here in Hollywood. And so I was interested of who was involved with this movie. So again, Back to Black is about the life and music of Amy Winehouse through the journey of adolescence to adulthood and the creation of one of the best-selling albums of our time. Again, going in, didn't know what to expect. I remember seeing the trailer for it back in February before the Bob Marley biopic, which happens a lot. You know, when there's another movie coming out, another music biopic coming out, will probably play another trailer for that. Like I remember I saw Bohemian Rhapsody. They showed the trailer for Rocket Man right before. It's kind of like, oh look, if you like these kind of movies in theaters coming soon, we'll have this movie. And then same thing with the Bob Marley movie. It was like I saw the trailer for this movie, and I was like, huh, I'm intrigued. And I remember hearing when the reviews lifted for this movie, they weren't the best. And I've noticed that a little bit with the past few music biopics, whether it was this, whether it was again Bob Marley One Love. I'm trying to think the one that came out last year or not too long ago. That it seems to be like a bit of a decline in biopics in terms of like critic reviews. And I do think that if you're a fan of these artists and you're a critic, I think it's kind of like hard. Like, how do you separate like the movie from like your own love and own passion for these, you know, this talented musicians? And I know that like, I'm trying to think. Well, it's like Elvis too. I know Elvis was kind of divisive in terms of like, you know, just like the style of the movie or just the movie itself. It's like, wait a second, hold up. Or like the substance of the movie. It's like, you know, how do you like, you know, separate from your own kind of like love of the artist and your own kind of like movie critique. And you know, I definitely now reviewing movies professionally now on the podcast, it's definitely like puts my perspective of like, hey, you know, like I want to review this movie just because of like a film, but also like I think you can enjoy it too as a fan. But again, in this case, I wasn't a big fan, not a huge fan of Amy Winehouse. Again, I'm not familiar with her work. Same thing with Bob Marley. I was not familiar with their work as much for this sort of kind of like their legacy and kind of like the impact they had on music and pop culture, stuff like that. So I wanted to go and see this more as like a film fan, a film buff, and as well as a film critic. Off the bat, I'll say this: the acting in this shines because of one person. Marissa Abella is a movie star. She is a movie star. You hear this all the time. Oh, a star is born. Oh, this is like the moment, whatever. This is one of the most amazing and one of the most mesmerizing breakout performances I have seen in my lifetime. She is phenomenal. Not knowing much about Amy, just seeing kind of like YouTube clips and old footage, whatever. What Marissa Abella does in this is transcending. She captures the charm, Amy's voice, It is, again, by far one of the most amazing performances that I've seen from a young actor. Probably, again, I would say in my lifetime. I was just in awe of her performance. This is her movie. No offense to any of the actors or anyone else involved. Marissa Abella, this is her movie through and through. It is not even close. And, I've seen, you see a lot of people praise for like Rami Malek or Kingsley Benadir with Bob Marley. Rami Malek played Freddie Mercury in Bohemian Rhapsody, Taron Egerton in Rocket Man. I thought that what Marissa did in this movie was definitely just top tier in terms of like performing the legacy of this person. And I felt the same. I felt a similar way in terms of Taron Egerton with Rocket Man. But the difference was that I already knew who Taron Egerton was, being a huge fan of him from like Kingsman, Eddie the Eagle. He was on a really bad Robin Hood movie that I was not a fan of, but I thought he was trying to like kind of save that movie with Jamie Foxx. But again, like I already knew who that was, so it was like, okay, I know that he's not like a huge household name yet, but like being a fan of his work from Kingsman and Eddie the Eagle, it was okay. I know who this guy was. I did not know who Marissa Bella was. Apparently, she was in Barbie. I think Barbie twice. I think I like the movie quite a bit, but I haven't seen it. I don't remember her as much in the movie. But going back and seeing after the movie, I was like, who does she play in Barbie? And I was like, oh, she played one of kind of like the random kind of like just throwaway Barbies, like a scene or two. But I'm like, oh wow, Marissa Abella just captures the essence, charm, and this voice of Amy Winehouse, and that's no matter who you're playing in a biopic, Chadwick Boseman, Jackie Robinson, Jason Mitchell, Eazy-E, Austin Butler, and Elvis, even someone like Margot Robbie and Tanya Harding, you have the whole definition of really big shoes to fill. This definitely is one of those situations where like Marissa really had to like just embody Amy with paying the most respectful, love to her, the most respectful, just kind of just like embrace of Amy. And I think a lot of people had an issue with this movie before seeing it because they were like, oh, they're exploiting her. Again, someone who's not too familiar with Amy Winehouse as a person or her kind of life, I also, from my perspective, I didn't feel like they were exploiting her in this movie whatsoever. I thought like they were showing of like, hey, listen, like this is how her life went. She was 27 when she passed away. She had a lot of life to live. She was one of the most beautiful voices of all time. Of her generation especially. So it's like I think it was showing the audience of like, hey, this is what she went through in her short time of being just one of the most influential artists of her generation. The press really went after her. The media would never give her a break. She had a lot of ups and downs with her family, addiction, her on off again husband. This movie to me, I felt like was just showcasing like what this girl went through during her short window of fame, and what Marissa really what kind of delivers in all fronts is that like this woman left us too soon, and her legacy 13 years later is still impactful to music and pop culture. But I'll tell you what, I really give any performer a lot of credit for, a lot extra credit for, is when they perform the music themselves. Again, Taron Egerton and Rocket Man. I'm trying to think who else. I think Jamie Foxx had a little bit of it in Ray as well. Also a great casting, if you ask me. And I think Austin Butler was mixed the voice a little bit. I don't think he was fully singing. I know Rami Malek was not singing, unfortunately. But when you just see, when you know that they're actually performing the songs, you kind of feel like, wow, they're committed to this role. They're committed to the story. Honoring the legacy of this person, and the fact that Marissa sings all of Amy's songs. Marissa has one of the most beautiful voices ever, but she's not mimicking. She's not imitating Amy. She's singing Amy's songs in the most loving, the most respectful, the most beautiful way. It doesn't feel like an SNL skit or like a really kind of like weird parody. No, like what Marissa's doing is embodying Amy, but her voice, Marissa has a beautiful voice of her own. It just adds to how impactful Amy's songs were and her lyrics were. Marissa has one of the best voices I've heard on screen, and probably a long time. Again, if I compare this a lot to Rocket Man with Taron Egerton, again, Taron also is musically trained from his background, and I thought how he performed Elton's songs were just beautiful, also mesmerizing, very sweet, very docile. And again, when you have performers who can actually sing and perform these songs, really adds to the movie itself. It makes you kind of enjoy the movie more, because you're like, you can tell like one's lip singing. Again, I don't want any shades, Rami Malek or Kingsley Ben-Adir or whoever, but it's very obvious when like you can see they're kind of lip singing, or like the camera cuts away a lot from just like, okay, they're singing, but like the camera keeps cutting away from like their like performance, whatever. And it's just like, okay, we know they're not singing, but make it look like they're singing or trying to sing. And to me, it's a little distracting, because I remember seeing the Barline movie back in February. It's like they're not really showing Kingsley Ben-Adir's voice or his kind of lips, they're kind of like really covering it with the mic, or kind of just like cutting away a lot. Where it's like, okay, I don't really believe that he's actually singing. What Sam Taylor Johnson does with this, when she's filming the music scenes where Amy's actually singing, when actually Marissa's singing, you damn well know Marissa's singing. And the music just really just embodies the scene, the movie itself. When the music's there, it is a character of its own, and the music really, really drives the story a lot. But like I said, it is Marissa Abella's movie, no doubt about it. You know, talking to my mom after seeing it, she was my +1 for this screening. She was saying, "Oh, Oscar and Golden Globe nom. I 100% hope she gets one. Probably a BAFTA for sure, because BAFTA likes to kind of showcase their talent from out of UK and from London, and I do think she'll get a BAFTA for sure. I really do hope that Marissa has some kind of conversation with her performance in terms of like just award nomination. It might just be a little hard, because this movie's coming out in May, and I wonder why too. Just because of this movie could have been like an October, November, or like December release. I'm surprised it's getting a May release. I wonder if it's because of the strikes. They're like, hey, listen, we have a window open in May. Let's put a movie in there. And again, I get it. You want to put like a movie like this out like before like the big like kind of like summer blockbuster movies. But at the same time, I was thinking, I'm like, this movie probably could have benefited a bit more if it came out close to award season. Either way, I really do hope Marissa Bella gets some kind of award, kind of just like award consideration for sure. Just because, again, I think she really does an amazing job of playing Amy. Like after coming home after the screening, I was just like, I want some clips of Amy's kind of like not compared, but like what kind of how to see how Marissa did kind of just like in compared to like actual Amy. Marissa did a beautiful job. She did a beautiful job, and I really hope that no one overlooks her in terms of awards. Or actually, you know what? I hope this movie gets her more roles, gets her more jobs, because again, I want to see this actress, this woman in a lot more stuff. I want to see her in more music related stuff, maybe stuff or music kind of like themed movies or shows. But her performance in this, it's in her eyes too. Her eyes and the way she kind of moves her lip and her facial expressions. It is just really a just mesmerizing and just really powerful performance. And for this to be her really first big role, her breakout role, bravo. I think she has a great career ahead of her. Like I said, I've had a reaction to things again now too. This is truly a Star is Born definition of a performance from a breakout actress. If you're gonna see this movie, just watch her. See how she moves, the way she sings, the way she kind of just interacts, the way she talks. It is really just a remarkable performance through and through. The thing about this movie I also like too is the element of family. You can tell that Amy was really close to her family, whether it was her dad, her mom, and especially her grandmother, her nana. And I loved how the movie. I really appreciate how the movie kind of explored her. Like her nana. She calls her nan. Her nana, her grandma was kind of like a big supporter of her voice, her talent. But like it wasn't like, oh yeah, do your thing, Amy, like go make money, whatever. No, it just Nana, her grandmother, really believed in her, and who she was as a person, and her voice and her talent. And it feel like, I'll make some money for the family, I'll go do it, whatever. You see a lot of biopics, a lot of movies in general, like based on true stories. Oh, like the family was just in it for the money, in it for the wrong reasons. And I'm really glad. Again, I don't know that the real truth of her family and about money or whatever, fame, but I like that the movie did not kind of go that route of like, oh, they're exploiting her for money, like they want a piece of the cake, one piece of the pie. They kind of do for another character. I'll get into that in a little bit, but in terms of her family, her immediate family, they never exploit her for like the money or like the fame. Like, oh, get us a car, get us a house, whatever. No, but just the dynamics between Amy and her grandmother was very beautiful. Like, they were best friends. Like, the love that they had for each other, the admiration that Amy had for her grandmother was very beautiful, very cathartic. And it's sad to see how that story progresses in terms of like what happens to these characters, to like both of them. But it's just watching that, wherever Amy was interacting with her grandma, like seeing her old photos of her grandmother, seeing kind of this like just like her life, like how like she took a lot of inspiration from her grandmother. And I want to give props to the actress who played her grandmother as well. And her name is Leslie Manville. And apparently she was in a movie called Mrs. Harris Goes to Paris, Phantom Thread. Oh, she was on The Crown. I'm not familiar with her, but I really just love that it didn't cast like, yeah, it says a lot in this movie too. The thing about the movie as well is that the movie did not cast A-list like huge names. We didn't get Florence Pugh playing Amy Winehouse. We didn't get Lily James playing Amy Winehouse. We didn't get someone like Anne Hathaway or another famous British actress. I know Anne Hathaway is American, don't worry. But I know like they didn't cast like a big like name, because I felt like that would have distracted us from the movie itself. And around the movie itself too, like I said, this actress Leslie Manville, I'm glad that, again, I'm not familiar with her work personally, but they didn't cast like, I don't know, like Emma Thompson or Judi Dench. Again, phenomenal actresses, 100%. But again, or Meryl Streep, obviously. But like, I'm glad that they casted an unknown, not big names for this movie, because again, it would have taken us out of like, oh, I just see so and so in a wig, or I see so and so in this role, whatever. Like, it wouldn't have like helped the movie. Really, I think been like, okay, look, we're casting these famous actors because they're a big name. No, I really do give a lot of props to Focus Features, Universal, as well as Sam Taylor Johnson, the casting department, that, hey, listen, we're going to cast actors and actresses that aren't really well known to make it feel more believable, make it feel more relatable too. And I give them a lot of props for that. But again, that to me really is the strength of this movie, on top of Marissa Bella's mesmerizing, outstanding performance. The whole time I'm like, I'm so glad they didn't cast this actress or this person, whatever. And again, it just would have been distracting. And I've seen movies too. That's why I think movies like 42, movies like Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocky Man, well, the movies work because, again, these actors aren't really big. Well, I do think this movie had a better job of using unknown talent, but I do think at the time, Taron Egerton, yes, we knew him from Kingsman, we knew him from Eddie the Eagle, stuff like that. But he wasn't really a household name the way he is now after Rocket Man came out. Rami Malek, I think, had a bigger name because of like his long career working in Hollywood. Mr. Robot was a huge show. But I think also Chadwick Boseman, when he played Jackie Robinson, I was like, yo, who is this guy? I was like, I think I've seen him before on other things, but like, who is him? And that was also the same way. I'm like, wow, this is a great performance of an American icon, Jackie Robinson. I didn't really know him at the time, like 11 years ago. Again, when they just work, when like the perfect casting just works, it just works. And this example of Marissa Bella as Amy Winehouse just works. And again, the casting overall is really, really just crucial to this movie. It's, I think, all biopics too. Yes, anyone with the star power, anyone with the star name. I think Austin Butler I was familiar with him because of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and kind of like movies I grew up watching on Disney Channel, Nickelodeon, stuff like that. But at the time, he wasn't really this big name the way he is now. And that's, give a lot of props to the filmmakers, casting, whatever. But again, I do like seeing in biopics that, hey, I'm not familiar with the actors or the actresses, but I'm a fan of these people now because they delivered awesome performances. I did also like the the dynamic between her, Amy and her dad, guy who I do know, Eddie Marsan, from stuff like The World's End, Gentleman, Deadpool, Sherlock Holmes, Wrath of the Man, Fast and Furious, like Mission Impossible, Hancock. Like, again, I know him. I'm a huge movie nerd, movie buff. Like, I'm familiar with his work. I thought he was great in The World's End as one of the buddies. I thought he was great in Hancock as one of like the terrorist, one of his villains, whatever. So I know him pretty well because of like me just being an ultimate film nerd and seeing every movie basically like ever made. But I do think a lot of people will not know who he is right off the bat. If you go to IMDb or if you go on like kind of like filmography, like, oh yeah, I see him, that guy in this movie, or I see him in this movie, whatever. You just know. But I really did like the chemistry between him, Amy's father, and Marissa Bella, because again, Mitch, who he plays, because again, I did appreciate that they didn't go like, oh, like the dad took the money, the dad took the he wanted the fame, he was putting his daughter on the spotlight, he was forcing her into it. Never like that, because we hear so many things nowadays about conservatorship or censorship or whatever in terms of like people. Parents or family members, guardians, whatever, having ownership over people's music or money, whatever. And it's just like I was kind of hoping like, oh, don't explore the people that happens. Again, this could have happened that I'm not familiar with, but for the movie itself, they don't say like, oh yeah, like he took the money and ran, he was a whatever. But yes, he had his flaws as a father, as a human, as a husband, but they don't like say like, oh, he was a villain in her life. Like Amy and Mitch had a lot of love for each other, and he loved his daughter. He was so worried about her. He was concerned for her. Like, yes, he was proud of her. He was happy that his daughter was succeeding, but like, it wasn't trying to exploit her or like just use her for her wealth and fame to kind of like better him off. And I really liked the chemistry between both these actors because again, it felt like an actual, authentic father and daughter relationship. I really give a lot of props to that. One thing too I give props to in terms of acting is Jack O'Connell. We came on screen, I was like, oh yeah, that's the guy from Unbroken, which is a very underrated movie directed by Angelina Jolie, written by the Coen brothers. It's a really tough watch. He was a World War II Olympian, Louis Zamprini, and he got caught by the Japanese Navy, and he was a POW. He was tortured, stuff like that. There's a movie called Unbroken. This movie called, not actual Jack O'Connell, but the movie itself called Unbroken. Very underrated movie. It is a tough watch, but it is a beautiful told movie, beautiful story. I would highly recommend Unbroken to anybody. It's filmed incredibly well by the great Roger Deakins. See that movie for sure. But when I saw him, I'm like, oh, because he reminds me a lot. Jack O'Connell reminds me a lot of Michael Fassbender to a little bit. But I was like, oh yeah, he's the guy from Unbroken, and I think I saw him in a movie called This Is England, stuff like that. So I knew who he was too. But again, he's not a household name. And I'm glad they didn't cast like, again, I love the guy, Taron Egerton. Or I'm glad I didn't cast, Tom Holland, something like that. Like, again, it was an actor that I'm sort of familiar with, but he wasn't a big name. Or cast someone like a Miles Teller or Ansel Elgort or I don't know, Austin Butler or something like that, or whatever. That worked because again, these are two not household name actors, kind of just performing with each other. And it really just shows like the authenticity and the realness of the relationship between Amy and her husband, Blake. And I will say the movie definitely has some kind of like the tropes of like, oh, like no, the guy like typical like the partner was a scumbag or a cheater or whatever. And I say that so many biopic movies, like, oh yeah, like my wife or my husband, they were cheaters, they left me, blah blah blah. They explore that for sure in this movie. Surprise, surprise. But I wasn't too turned off by it or bothered by it because I'm like, I wanted to see how this played out. Because again, the movie shows how toxic they were together and were to each other even before they were together. And I like that they didn't shy away from like how kind of fucked up they were when they were together and the stuff they were doing, because it was like, oh my god, this is like terrible. So I gotta give a lot of props to I'm not shying away from just like the toxicity of like their marriage and their relationship before they were married and after they were married, stuff like that. A lot of props to that. However, I think this movie doesn't work on all fronts, unfortunately. I will say, if you're a diehard Amy Winehouse fan, see this movie. You can say my review was like not valid or whatever. I cannot argue with that because again, I'm not familiar with her work. I'm basing this off of just a film critique, film reviewer, just my perspective. The movie just has the typical biopic trope of like, but what happens, and then bam. And the same thing I gave Bob Marley One Love a lot of, kind of a lot of like, I knocked off points for was that I felt the Bob Marley movie was so uncenter, so uneven and unfocused, and just kind of just felt like they didn't know how to like narrow his story kind of like through, kind of like in a through line. I will say that I think I followed the story, Back to Black, Amy's story a bit more. I think I enjoyed it a bit more. However, this movie suffers from just being super rushed. It's super rushed. It's 2 hours to be exact. The movie could have been 2:30. I probably would have been more in. I would have mind another half hour to it. The movie just kind of rushed. When it goes, it just goes. Again, me. I'll call out pace, whether it's good or bad. This movie has a pace that just didn't really know how to just slow down and kind of cover things. The movie starts off, before she was big, she was kind of getting her little deal, whatever. And it goes, all right, you should start now. And it's like, whoa, calm down. Bring it back a little bit. It's just the movie does not have time to breathe. I mean, it breathes at times. It's kind of like a weird pace. It'll like start off, okay, like slow, and then boom, slow again, boom, boom. It just didn't really know like its own rhythm or own pace to kind of tell her story. And I think the movie would have benefited a lot from a longer runtime or just certain things of telling the story narrative wise, because again, it just feels rushed. It just jumps around a lot. You're like, how I gave a lot of crap for Bob Marley One Love, it was that it kind of just went back and forth, and then we didn't know what was going on, stuff like that. And also too, I don't remember, again, I saw it once back in February, but same with this movie, they never tell us what year we're in. And again, I don't want to be trying to be spoon-fed or like, oh, this is April 2010, or this is February 2009. I'm not asking for that in every movie, but for someone who's not familiar with her work, with Amy's life, I would have appreciated this timelines. Okay, this is winter 2009. This is summer 2010, whatever. This is fall 2008. I would appreciate that, just knowing where we are time-wise. Again, we saw the flip phones. I saw like certain things here and there, but it just didn't really feel like I didn't like how it was structured narratively or storytelling wise. It just kind of felt like they were like in a place to go. Like, hey, this is it. We're gonna show this thing. We're gonna show this song. We're gonna show her filming this album, and then done. Okay, I know you want to showcase like kind of like the big parts of her life, but if you want people to come see this movie that aren't familiar with her work or want to learn more about her, take it slow, spread it out evenly, use your time wisely. Because if you're doing her entire from before she was big, before she blew up, till her passing, you just want to spend time with her in a reasonable amount of time, in a reasonable just like way. And I just do think the movie was either, again, it could have been edited a certain way either, but I just think that they were like, hey, we want to pinpoint this, and then that's it. Where I think that it could have benefited from having more of a fleshed out storyline of like, we want to include this, a little bit of this, a little bit of that too. Because when you jump around a lot, it kind of feels like we're like you kind of just like didn't have a lot to say, or like you didn't want to showcase certain things in terms of just like the narrative, the bigger picture. So the whole time I'm like, it feels like the first 20 minutes I'm like, oh, they gotta slow down a little bit, because just the way we get from point A to point B. And I think Act 2 slows down definitely out of all three acts. Definitely feels more like just explained better. That's my word, but kind of just like explored more. But Act 1 and Act 3 are just rushed. They're just rushed. It's like, hey, calm down now, because I wanted to learn more. I guess I can watch the Amy documentary on Max by A24 or do my own research. But I really didn't want. I wanted the movie to explore just kind of just like this her mindset, or her life, and just in a reasonable pace way. I think the movie just had an editing problem of like how it was told, and again, it didn't bother me as much as it did with Bob Marley One Love. But when I seen things from like Rocket Man or Bohemian Rhapsody, Straight Outta Compton, or Ray, to me those movies, or Elvis, those movies to me felt like they were taking in their time, because they want to explore the mindset and just like the rise and just the fame of these legends, these legends, the icons, you name it. And I wish the movie could have just took more time to explore maybe her more of her inspiration, more of her kind of just like going to rehab, more of her writing this certain song, or the album itself, or how she met the men in her band and the backup singers. It just was like, yep, there it is, that's it. And I feel like a lot of things were kind of glossed over, or just kind of just like brought up once and then forgotten about later. And I'm like, okay. Or there's a certain thing with a character like happens to someone in her life, brought up once, and then next thing it's like, okay, it's done already. It's like, oh, come on, just spend the time. Where I think audiences are willing to invest in the life and death, the from birth to death stories in biopics, if you explain and if you kind of like explore it in a very respectful and very kind of just like creative narrative way. This movie tries to do at times, but fails in terms of the bigger picture, in terms of the entire movie. And I was like, oh man, I wish you could have explored more. I wish we had more time with Amy in this movie to explore more of just like her influence and just her life in general. So that is what kind of brought me down a lot in the score of this movie, because I'm like, oh man, it just felt it was in a rush. And there was times too where it was just like certain things kind of felt too long, like certain scenes of like they're in a bar for like 30 minutes. Okay, that just kind of feels like it was dragged out. Again, I thought some things in the movies were either dragged out too long, that were kind of felt unnecessary, or there were things I wanted to see more that kind of were like, nope, we're done. That's it. That's all you're getting. It's like, ooh, just uneven. It was very uneven in terms of the structure and storytelling, and just like the movie itself. I don't like feeling rushed in any kind of movie. I don't care if it's a biopic or movie itself. You can just tell the runtime, or you can just tell the movie. You're like, oh, I wouldn't mind 10 more minutes of that. And I've been movies where I'm like, this movie could have benefited from like 20 minutes shorter. Like, again, I love Monkey Man, but like the second act, I was like, this is dragging a little too much. You need to trim it a little bit. And I have no problem saying that, because there's movies that I'm like really like, again, pace to me is a big deal in films, or just narrative structure and the way it's told. Long, short doesn't matter. If you can engage me, again, something like The Irishman or Killers of the Flower Moon, I thought those were overly long. I'm the minority of that. I understand that. But with Back to Black, I was invested in because of Marissa Bella's amazing. I heard again her groundbreaking performance. I was like, oh, like there's a lot more to tell with her story, but the filmmaking and the people involved, I guess, didn't really want to cover that, or they just didn't want. They just didn't want it. They were kind of, again, they wanted to show certain things, X, Y, and Z, and that's it. So yeah, I definitely had a problem with how it was told narrative wise, and just it felt rushed. And this is the second biopic I've seen this year. I had the same problem with like structure and the way it's told with this. And again, Bob Marley, One Love. I thought Elvis was a bit long, like 3 hours too. I was like, oh, okay, we can benefit from like some time trimmed, whatever. But still, if it was 2:20, whatever, I still thought Elvis and like Rocket Man did a better job of just navigating this journey of this person's life. And even certain characters too. There's some characters that we were introduced to that we never saw again. It's like, then why bother even bringing them in the picture in the first place? ? Or things were brought up at the end of like, oh yeah, this person did this. How do you feel about this? When Amy's kind of trying to get away from it all, like, okay, why would you bring that up if you're not going to explore that? Like, it's kind of a bit of a throwaway of like, yeah, this happened. All right, whatever. It's like, if you're gonna introduce something in a movie like that's pretty like big to a character's life, or monumental to a character's like kind of like overall arc, just be prepared to just explore it, and don't be shy of like saying, hey, this what happened to this person, this happened to this is how it impacted her. And it just, that's the biggest thing. I'm like, oh man, it's just could have spent more time. I think cinematography in this is remarkable. This is Polly Morgan was the cinematographer of this movie, and she's worked on, let's see, she was the DP of Quiet Place Part 2, which I like a lot more than Quiet Place Part 1, surprisingly. She was also the cinematographer on Women King. Her, it's a really good movie, Viola Davis. I'm trying to think, never seen this movie, but she seems like she worked in camera department for stuff like Inception, one of the best movies ever made, V for Vendetta, Hairspray, National Treasure, great movie. The cinematography, the way that this movie shot in terms of like the music scenes itself. Oh, another thing too, this movie, I would say, isn't really about her music. It's more about her life and a bit of her like trouble with addiction and her relationship with her husband and her dad to a degree. I do think the music's kind of is a little bit underutilized and overshadowed at times. I'm like, I want to know more about the music. I feel like, again, like something like Elvis or like Straight Outta Compton, Rocket Man, the music's very there. Again, the music's here in this movie. Like I said, I mentioned this before. The music is for sure a character of its own, but this movie itself just feels like it's more about her trouble with addiction and her downfall of her romance with her husband. Where I'm like, okay, her music's so important, and you keep saying her music's so important, and from Amy's perspective in the movie and the movie itself, then why are you underutilizing it a little bit? It's like, hey, you got, again, if the music, again, her music, again, to this day, Back to Black is one of the most popular albums of all time. It won Grammys, obviously. Rehab is a really important, really just still monumental song years later. But I was a little bit confused of like, did the movie was the movie more about like her just kind of her problem with addiction, her romance with her husband, and it's just like, what did you want to know? So I think going in, if you know that, hey, it's more about her personal life and addiction and romance with her husband and the downfall of that, just be prepared, I would say, because when I was watching it, I was like, okay, the music there right off the bat, and then it takes a while for the music to come back into the story. How I said too, like same with the bar. We're in this like bar for like 20, 30 minutes, and I'm like, okay, how is this about her life or her music or her career? So it's a heads up going in, and that kind of bothered me. I'm like, I think with biopics, I don't care if it's about sports, music, whatever, entertainment. You want to balance these out to have a really kind of like cohesive, very kind of like cohesive, but also very kind of just like very well balanced story. I think the music was kind of just like not well balanced. I think her personal life was definitely more present and more kind of just like uplifted in terms of how they shot the movie, and the music kind of fell to the wayside a little bit. I was like, oh man, just more consistent is the word I'm looking for. Like if it was more consistent and more just kind of well balanced, you would have saw. Same critique with Bob Marley One Love. I was like, ooh, it just kind of feels unbalanced. Again, that's the word I'm using this review is unbalanced and uneven. If the movie kind of took more time just to kind of like balance the both, I think we're talking about a really like well received movie. Unfortunately, like now 38 on 40 or 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, not the best. And again, this is the second biopic this year that has not got music biopics that have not got well received by critics. I'm very curious to see how this does A, box office wise, and B, with the fans as well as like the audiences, especially people who love Amy Winehouse. I'm really curious. I think Bob Marley One Love had like a really kind of also not the best critic score, but had a really great audience score from like the fans. So I'm very curious to see. Also had a great box office run. I hope this movie does. I want a movie like this. Again, could have been a Netflix, Hulu, HBO, whatever movie for sure. But again, I do have to give a lot of props again to Focus Features Universal for still committing to the lower budget biopics like this, like dramas like this, because I think it's really important that we have like a variety of movies like this in the theaters. So I'm going to give Back to Black a 6 out of 10. I think if it was on the Rotten Tomatoes scale, I would give it fresh just because of Marissa Bella's performance. And just the performance overall and the way it was shot. It shot just the cinematography of like in and out of frame, just the music scenes, like the more intimate scenes. This is shot just masterfully in terms of cinematography and camera work. And again, Marissa Bella, please give this girl a nomination for Oscar or Golden Globe or BAFTA. She's remarkable in this. I really cannot wait to see more for her as a performer, and I'd love to hear her more. I was looking for the soundtrack on Spotify last night on Apple Podcasts. They have Amy songs, but I'm like, I wonder if they're ever going to release Marissa's version of those songs. I want to hear both. Again, Amy has this remarkable voice, but I'm really curious to hear Marissa's voice again. So I thought it was just really mesmerizing, just very beautiful, again, cathartic. So yeah, guys, I'm giving Back to Black 6 out of 10. I would say if you're curious about this movie, maybe a matinee or discount Tuesday. But if you are really, again, this diehard Amy Winehouse fan, go see it. Go see it on the big screen for sure. I think no matter, again, I think it's important to see if you're a fan of any kind of music, musician or legend or whatever. I think it's important to see the movie in theaters no matter what, to show the respect and kind of just like honor the legacy of that certain person. So yeah, Back to Black, 6 out of 10 in theaters this weekend. Alrighty, my movie friends. Like I said, we have top of the episode. I said I have my top 5 music biopics of all time, and I'm going through my list last night. I was like, which one kind of stuck with me that I'm like, oh, this is really good. But number one, I'll start with number one for sure. Number one, I'll say this straight out of Compton. Like I said, I grew up listening to Ice Cube, NWA, Dr. Dre, stuff like that. So that's a big part of my childhood. Why I love hip hop and rap. I will definitely give that a 1. I remember this is July 2015. My friends and I, including Joel, we got these screening passes to go see this movie like a month before it came out. And we were so hyped for this movie. F. Gary Gray, one of my favorite filmmakers, was involved. I was like, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait for this. And sure enough, it was really cool because Ice Cube was there for a Q&A with F. Gary Gray, with his son, O'Shea Jackson Jr., and the guy who played Eazy, Jason Mitchell. And it was so cool seeing a month before it came out. Like, we were the hype of like, go see this movie. This movie's awesome. And as an NWA, as a movie fan, NWA fan, and hip hop fan, that movie delivered on all levels, and I can watch it over and over again. It gets better and better. The cinematography, the way the concert scenes are shot, the way we're in the studio with them, just feels so real and has a weird spectacle to it. I can't really explain. I think it's a perfect biopic, if you ask me. I know, a little glamorized as well. Obviously, Dr. Dre and Ice Cube produced the movie, so they're going to keep out like certain things in the movie. But Paul Giamatti's great as their scumbag Jerry Howler manager. The cast works. Everyone is cast in the movie very well. All 5 members: Eazy, Dr. Dre, Ice Cube, MC and DJ Yella. It just really 2.5 hour movie. It just goes, but you want to live the role longer. You want to be in this role longer with them, and the way they kind of show the downfall and the rise of these guys and their separate careers, whatever. And it showed like what happened to Dr. Dre with Suge Knight and Tupac influence, stuff like that. It really is one of the best movies I think in the past decade or two, and I think it's definitely a perfect music biopic if you ask me. Number 2, I don't know. Okay, I'm gonna count this one, and you can if you don't want to. I respect. I'm gonna give 8 Mile this just because. Also, again, growing up, big Eminem fan. I liked how gritty it felt. I liked how it felt just like it felt like really kind of like you're in the dirt, kind of in the trenches, whatever. And I really did like seeing Eminem's performance. He's playing himself basically, but the music's very iconic. It's an album that I want to buy on vinyl that I can't really find anywhere. So you know where it is, let me know on Instagram or DM me, whatever. I really do like it. It's loosely inspired by Eminem's life as a rapper in Detroit. But it has a rocky element to it, it has a little bit of edge to it. It shows him kind of just like how vulnerable he was at times and how he was working these like really crappy jobs, living with his mom in a trailer with his little sister. It just showed like, wow, like he just wanted to like really kind of just like rap. He wanted to like really kind of show his talent. And it's one also very rewatchable as well that you go back and watch. You can pick up certain things here and there. Great performances by Eminem. I'm thinking what's in that movie. Anthony Mackie as Papa Doc. The late great Brittany Murphy. And who plays his friend? I'm always bringing his name. Mekhi Phifer, like Evan Jones, Omar Benson Miller, who I loved in Ballers, D'Angelo Wilson. Like, it's a really, really, really good cast. And again, very rewatchable. Yes, it's dated because it's in the 90s, whatever. But the music, it feels like an actual like hip hop scene in Detroit in the 90s, whatever. The soundtrack's amazing, so very iconic. Because then we have Lose Yourself that won an Oscar, and obviously Eminem came back to perform it 2020 whatever before COVID hit. So I'm gonna give 8 Mile number 2 because I feel like it's a very very just well made movie, but it works as a non-biopic and it also works on a biopic at the same time, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna give that to number 2 to 8 Mile. Man, I was going through this list again and again and again. 3, I'm gonna go Ray. Again, I like Ray Charles because of this, like his impact on music and just jazz and piano. I'm a huge Jamie Foxx fan. He's one of my heroes, one of my idols, and I just think that Jamie Foxx he's always been Jamie Foxx, on top of the game. cool, funny. He can sing. He's kind of like one of those guys that has everything. He's funny. He can dance. He can sing, whatever. He can act, and he's super charming, really handsome. I just thought that, not knowing much about Ray when I saw it in high school, whatever. I was like, whoa, what is this? And just the way he moves, the way he kind of just, again, he embodies Ray Charles without like mimicking him or mocking him or making fun like a really bad SNL, parody skit. It just feels like you see all the love that Jimmy Fox had for Ray Charles, and like probably took some inspiration of his own. Like, oh yeah, I listen to Ray Charles, this and that, whatever. Just the way really that Jimmy Fox just shines. And if you listen to his Oscar speech when he won for that back in 2005, I want to say, it's 2005. It's one of my favorite Oscar speeches. I go back and watch. I go back and watch it here and again. Just the way he talks about his grandmother, the way like how he loves his grandmother. Just he's there with his daughter. It's very beautiful. Again, he's one of my heroes. I idolize Jimmy Fox. Like I said, he can do anything. He can do no wrong. He can do everything. He's been some of my favorite movies of all time, like Django Unchained, Baby Driver. Let's Horrible Bosses, my favorite comedies. The list goes on and on and on. And really, it's just another one's kind of like just like once in a lifetime performances. Listen, I loved him in Django. I loved him in Spider-Man. He really can do no wrong if you ask me. However, you just know when it's right, it's just right, and that was the definition of perfect casting. So I'm going number 3 with Ray. It's a little long, but just watching Jimmy Fox, the way he talks, the way he kind of embodies really just Ray Charles is just another masterclass in acting. So again, 1, we have Straight Outta Compton. 2, we have 8 Mile. 3, we have Ray. Number 4, oh man, I have my list right now. I'm looking at my biopics I put down on my list. I wish Maestro was better for me. I would have loved to put that as number 4 or 5, but did not work for me. If we're counting this, again, I'm counting this. I'm going to count. Yeah, I'm going to give Tick, Tick, Boom. I remember seeing Tick, Tick, Boom when it came out on Netflix during I want to say it was like during, I think kind of like COVID. It was like 2021, whatever. I'm going to give it, Jonathan Larson wasn't like an icon the way Ray Charles or Amy Winehouse or Elton John is, but being a huge Andrew Garfield fan since Social Network, and then I thought he was great as Spider-Man, obviously, and then Hacksaw Ridge he was great in. Tick, Tick, Boom just really hit me in a place where I was like, oh my God, as someone who wants to work in, entertainment, kind of struggling artists, entertainment, whatever. This is before we had the podcast too. I was kind of like, it was getting out of COVID. I was like, what's my life going to be, when I'm 30 or like in this industry? And I thought Lin-Manuel Miranda's directorial debut as a film director was just out of this park magnificent. I'm a huge Lin-Manuel Miranda fan. Hamilton, In the Heights, anything. He can do no wrong. I thought he's so whimsical. He's a huge heart. He loves music, loves musicals, loves Broadway. The passion's there. You put 2 people together. It's like 3. You have Jonathan Larson music. You have a talented performer of Andrew Garfield, and you have a great just visionary in Lin-Manuel Miranda. You put them together, you have a work of gold. I remember watching it on Netflix. It's a movie that it was because it was kind of getting out of COVID. It was kind of Omicron, whatever virus was back, whatever. And I remember watching on the screen. I was so glued to the screen. I'm like, the music. I played 3090 all the time in the car. Love that song. The New York in the 90s, the relationship with John Larson and his best friend, and his romance. It just feels like this is why we love movies, but also too just like it made me go back and watch stuff struggling now, but like just believe in yourself, believe in your talent, believe in your craft. You'll get there eventually. I just love that movie. So I'm counting Tick, Tick, Boom as number 4. Again, so we have Straight Outta Compton number 1, 8 Mile 2, 3 Ray, 4. Yeah, 4 Tick, Tick, Boom, and 5. Oh man, this is gonna be tough. It's tough. I'm trying to think of one that also online was like, oh, Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox is a biopic. I'm like, it's a kind of like a mockumentary biopic if you ask me, or kind of like mocking it. I had to give props to Elvis for Austin Butler's performance, and that was special. I have to give a huge shout out to Chadwick Boseman and Get On Up. Talk about embodying somebody. His voice, the way he danced, the way he moved, the way he sang, that was James Brown just kind of reincarnated. If you ask me, I'm just like, oh my God, like Chadwick Boseman is like can do no wrong. That's why I think he became really a household name. I think after playing Jackie Robinson, Jackie Brown back to back, he's just like, oh my God, who's this guy? And he was talent. Talk about talent gone too soon. Chadwick Boseman is definitely one of the definitions of gone too soon. Tough. Oh man, I don't know. I went 5. I'm going Rocket Man. I'm going Rocket Man just because I think I was a little disappointed with Bohemian Rhapsody. It did not work for me personally. I still think everyone involved was very talented, very gifted. I think Rami Malek definitely was great as Bohemian Rhapsody. Again, talk about moving and dancing like him, whatever. Just didn't think that. Like, I thought the prosthetics were kind of a little distracting, and I thought just like, again, he wasn't really singing, and I was like, all right, but the Live Aid stuff was great. I love the stuff within the studio, but the movie kind of just didn't work for me. I was so hyped for it, and I was like, oh, this didn't work. I thought the trailers were great. And I remember seeing it with friends when the movie came out. Like, this was great, right? And I was like, yeah, it was fine. I was like, I remember all my family loved it too. Family loved it. This is great. I was like, oh man, I want to be like you, like it as well, or love it. It didn't work for me, and I haven't watched it in a while either. Maybe like before COVID, so probably worth revisiting again. But 5, I think Rocket Man, just because again, Taron Egerton just beautifully played Elton John. Again, also not too familiar with Elton John's music. I know, like, Crocodile Rock and whatever the song is for like to fight. What's the name of the song? Elton John fight song. Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting. Duh. I know that song obviously, or Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, but I don't really know too much about his life other than kind of just like what he had to face and the struggles he went through and the challenges he faced in his life. But what Taron did just beautifully, it was a really beautiful fantasy. I love that about it, because you see a lot of like kind of biopics. It was just like they'll break out kind of just like, oh yeah, like not only a musical, just like they're singing the song in the studio or on the concert, whatever. I really did love the musical aspect, the fantasy aspect to Rocket Man, that it wasn't like a typical musical. It was a musical fantasy where it was just like you're along with the ride. If you weren't in with it the first 10, 15 minutes, you're going to be out. But when it started, I was like, wow, like it's very fantasy, very kind of just boyish, very just like charm and whimsical feel. And I'm like, okay, I'm with this. And I just thought what Taron did was just really, really, really remarkable. And, he won the Golden Globe, but I thought he was 100% overshadowed by the Oscars, where that should have been a Oscar-nominated, not Oscar-winning performance. Listen, that year was tough. You had a lot of people. Joaquin Phoenix played the Joker, which is hard to beat. But in terms of just a nomination, 1,000% should have been nominated. I think he could have won too if Joaquin didn't play the Joker that year, and Taron would have not nominated. I thought Taron could have won for sure, because again, he's singing, he's dancing, he's moving through the air like Elton. He's just really embodying what Elton means to so many people in the music and the pop culture, and he's an icon. I thought what Dexter Fletcher did in that movie too, in terms of directing, you partnering up with someone great, with Matthew Vaughn as a producer. You had the talent there. Cinematography was stunning. Costume design was just so on point. They did a great job of kind of just nailing, what Elton, embodied at the time, and with his costumes and kind of just like his spectacle of his music and songs and concerts. So I gave Elton John, I gave Rocket Man in my 5th spot. Again, watching it, I was mesmerized by just Taron Egerton and just the way he was floating in the air like Elton. The music was so good. I remember listening to Elton John like a week after listening to it, like on Spotify or Apple. That's one too that I'm so bummed that I didn't see that in theaters. I got to a screening of that, and I think I had like another event going on. I was like, I'm gonna see it eventually. And that summer 2019 was just so busy. Like, it was all these other movies. I was working 2 jobs. I was back from London for my semester abroad. It was just like playing catch up. I was like, I'm gonna see it eventually. And I'm so mad at myself for not seeing that in theaters, because I think I would have loved it even more in theaters. But I remember watching it when it came on like Netflix or whatever HBO when it came on streaming during COVID. I was just like, I'm watching it now, and I was glued to the screen for the 2 hours. I'm like, oh, this is great. And again, I thought that movie delivered a lot more what I wanted from Bohemian Rhapsody. I was like, oh, this movie I wanted, because again, it was rated R. I like that they didn't shy away from their R rating. You know, they showed the nitty and gritty of like what Elston's life was on stage and off stage. Just it's a really beautiful movie, and also again about like, hey, you know what, follow your dreams, you know, follow your passion, be true to yourself, never give up on that. So I love that element about any kind of movie, but I thought Rocketman did a great job of that. So yeah, I'm gonna do okay, 1 Straight Outta Compton, 2 8 Mile, 3 Ray, 4 Tick Tick Boom, and 5 Rocketman. And out of 3 of them, I would say they're all rated. What was Ray rated? I think Ray was rated PG-13. Or yeah, okay. So obviously, Straight Outta Compton was R, 8 Mile was R, Ray PG-13, Tick Tick Boom PG-13, and then Rocketman R. So kind of a bit of a back and forth with the ratings. So yeah, guys, let us know what your favorite biopics are. Let us know like in the comments on YouTube or Instagram or TikTok, whatever. We want to hear from you guys. If you agree with my list too. So yeah, you know, definitely it's, you know, it's, we love hearing kind of like your list, stuff like that. And yeah, guys, it's listen to music, you know, go outside, listen to music, get Spotify, Apple, if you're vinyl record collector like I am, get some music. It's just remember just to appreciate the music that we have, and you know, play some music, show your friends, show your family some good music. And I probably should be buying more vinyls. It's kind of expensive, but you know, I love making playlists of music too. I think music is definitely a big part of my life, I think everyone's life, and I love when movies, you know, utilize music in very, very different ways. So yeah, it's exciting to see, you know, the kind of just like how music's evolving too in film and just in pop culture too. So as always, guys, we hope you are having a great month of May. Again, we'll be back next week with a full episode of the podcast. And as always, we'll see you at the movies.